I always feel strange calling specifically the two characters of Good Time and Gems losers. They're not losers. They're winners who don't win.
Outside of your own characters, can you tell me who your favorite other winners who don't win are from cinema?
It's funny, I was going to say, George Segal did it twice.
Yes,
he did it in Born to Win.
They say I'm a charmer, and I charm my hustles. Well, that comes after dealing with women, you know.
Stop that man! Help! Stop that man! Police! Police!
And in California Split.
Damn it, that last gun that went off the table was a joker. That's why you wouldn't give it up.
You are ridiculous.
You said it wasn't even close.
Yesterday's news.
You two are working together. You're partners. You two motherfucking creeps are
Stop with the
partners.
language.
Hey, stop that.
All right.
All right.
All right. Now, who else saw this?
He did it in both of those films.
The hot rock too, a little bit.
I'm firing you, and I thought you'd want to know.
What?
I've been convinced I could do better elsewhere.
Doctor, after all the risks we took for you, how can you double-cross us like this?
Sir, I'm a man of honor and a patriot.
And also, actually, Nick in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf in a weird way, too.
I said you certainly are a flop in some
I'm
departments.
sorry you're disappointed.
So, George, let's just call it George Segal's.
I kind of want to say Redford.
In what?
No, in an Indecent Proposal. He doesn't win.
I'd say.
Come on.
Oh.
For some reason, I'm on the side of Redford in that movie, and Josh always gives me shit about that.
I think the father character in He Got Game. I think that's a winner who doesn't win. That's mentality of like feeling like he has to prove it.
Hello, son.
Mary, what did I tell you about letting strangers in the house?
He's not a stranger. He's our father.
I don't have a father.
Hey, wait a minute.
Daddy, he's tripping.
Hero, you know the movie Hero with Dustin.
I got your bail continued.
Bail? I don't want my bail continued. What do you mean you got my bail continued?
Don't you understand, Mr. Plant, that they found you guilty?
Guilty? What do you mean?
The jury found you guilty.
I'm innocent, for Christ's sake.
Llewyn Davis is a
Llewyn
big
Davis
one,
is a good
for
one.
sure.
I'm sorry. What is...
You sit there in the audience last night yelling your crap.
Oh, for Christ's sake, you yell stuff, man. It's a show.
The unfortunate thing for him is that somebody
else wins big. But basically, I'll be running the boom, and then Josh will be not at the monitor, but at his own little handheld monitor.
I'm framing the film.
Yeah, behind, like somewhere in the set. So we're constantly always in the set. We'll never leave. We're on set, on location. And then, yes, in this sense, it was important because from that point of view, you're standing the closest to the actors other than the other actors. So you have an incredible point of view on it. And plus, you're listening to kind of a hyperphonic version of what they say. And so you can kind of hear the performance in an interesting way. And it's very helpful. And also, for everybody around, it's like, okay, we're all doing this together with our bare hands, we're all in this, and I feel like it adds kind of a closeness to it all.
The beautiful part about this film is like, we're so lucky because we got crewed up in a really amazing way because we had Darius Kanji helping put together the crew. So you have our key grip, I'm talking to him about it, his first movie was Do the Right Thing. And then he worked on After Hours, you know what I mean? So it's like, that was, and Scorsese's a producer, so then that also helps getting, Amy Lauritsen, you look at, she worked on Goodfellas, you know what I mean? It was our first AD, and Andy Day, well, we drove past the Midtown Tunnel, and he was like, oh, we were talking about the Midtown Tunnel. He's like, I did a movie in there once. We're like, oh my God, what? And he's like, Daylight? We're like, you worked on Daylight? And he was like, we asked so many questions. He's like, most people want to talk to me about Wes Anderson and working with this director and that director. You want to talk to me about Daylight? And we're like, yeah, well, I want to know what Sly Stallone was like. So I think that there was a general enthusiasm amongst everybody in making this, we don't say action, only because I feel so self-conscious saying it. All I can feel is 100+ years of movies of people with a little cone, like 15-year-olds being like action. I can't say it, so we just kind of like create the energy and then let it go, and then the actors know when to start. And
we shoot the rehearsals. It's a kinetic
No
feeling.
marks for the
Yeah.
actors. So I think there was, kinetic is the right answer.
And also we're listening to everybody. Kind of, if somebody has, oh, this is going to be better. Okay, great, let's do that. You know, you can't make a mistake really. You can, but it's not the end of the world.
What's the most embarrassing, weird, or hilarious on-set incident you'd be willing to share with us? We'll do that.
Okay, I almost, because I run boom, I almost hit Adina in the head with the boom.
That's not that embarrassing.
But I felt very bad. It was very embarrassing because it was like a first time on the big thing, and then I like swiped over and I just like I clipped her hair.
I let out about 1 second of piss into my underwear shooting gems, but like I wasn't embarrassed about it. I was like, I gotta go throw my underwear
just
away.
normal.
It was nervous laughter.
I don't know.
I'm sorry, you throw your underwear away after 1 second of pee?
Well,
There was a lot of
one
pee.
sec. Think about one Mississippi of urine coming out of your penis.
Pent up.
Yeah.
Pent up from a days of
I don't.
a day's
I
worth.
never go to the bathroom. I don't take bathroom breaks, and it's
What?
it's because it goes back to when I was a kid. I feel like it's a waste of time, so I just hold it in.
I'm the
and
opposite.
then-
I'll go.
bad for you.
I'm the opposite. I'll go so
it's
much.
very bad for you. You kidding me?
But
Yeah,
I'll
it's
go
very
so
bad for
much
you.
that I have to go too much. You know, it's like the
So I
moment
just-
there's a slight pressure.
I think it's tied to ADHD somehow.
Y'all and I are about the same age, so I assume you grew up.
Oh, for sure.
Those records,
yeah, the
with the
records were
records.
They're
tantamount.
all gonna laugh at you.
They're all gonna
Oh
laugh
my
at you.
God.
What the hell
We're
happened to
gonna
me?
talk about
Yeah.
that in there.
That's
Yeah.
like they're movies on record.
That's how we got introduced to Sandler, was
I
through his
guess
comedy.
I want you to tell me the
records.
story of the first time you actually met with Sandler
Okay.
for this role, and like, what did that feel like for y'all? I mean, he's
A hero and an icon,
right,
an American treasure.
you know,
Yeah.
So what was it like?
And the first time he ever texted me, he's like, "Good time was fucking incredible." And I was like, "Who is this?" He goes, "Sandler." And I said, "Which Sandler?" And he goes, "The famous one." And I said, "I happen to know one famous Sandler. Is this the other famous Sandler?" I know there's a photographer who's not. He's famous in my world, but probably not in the real world. So he's like, the more famous one. And then we started talking, and then
In those early talks, he was very excited about the movie, but he didn't fully commit. He was just
Gems,
always
for gems.
For gems, he was always just like, "Oh yeah, that's great. Like, let's see." He always gave us the let's see, and we were thinking like, "Oh, is he? We think he's in on this," but it wasn't a hard like, "Okay, let's go for it."
the first time we ever met with him, we were shooting a Jay-Z music video, and we were shooting nights, 2 nights in a row. And he was in town for a Meyerowitz premiere. And he said, "Let's meet to play basketball." That would be the first time we meet. So we met him, and I love playing basketball. So we met him at 7 in the morning before he had his press day begin, after we were shooting until 5 in the morning. So, and I went and did I think we played a miniaturized full court
insane,
session,
yes.
3-on-3. And it was unbelievable. And it was very short. So it was like, "Oh my God, you're Adam Sandler." We talked a little bit. We played basketball. We bonded through a nice pass or a great pick. And then he went and did his press. And then we met up a day later and had some hamburgers. And that's when we started to get into it. And then,
But he
Scott-
wasn't.
yeah.
He wasn't like committed. And then it was like, "Okay, what do we do? How do we get him to the next step?" And then Scott Rudin was like, "You go to LA, you sit down, and you convince him." You know, it was just
Well,
like,
it was more you sit down in a serious setting in his office and you talk to him, artist to artist, about the work, and that's what we did. I was like, "Oh my God, these are these legendary moments you hear about, the filmmaker flying across the country to meet with the movie star," and we did that.
Who won the game?
I'm so competitive with him when it comes to playing basketball. I think it was like a 2-2 situation. He won 2, we won 2.
Oh, yeah,
he's
he can.
he's good. He does a chicken wing thing though.
Wait, what?
He fouls.
Yeah.
He does a chicken wing thing when you go up.
So he's cheating?
He plays like an old.
He's
He's
not
not
cheating.
cheating. He's a.
Calling Adam Sandler a cheater?
No, he's a crafty player. He uses his age to get at you when you're 20 years younger than him. We sat there. We showed him the Jay-Z cut of the video. He was very emotional, his response to it. And then we just sat and we had the script open and we just talked about it. And
talked about our process of how we work with actors, how it's an open communication, and how we don't ever want him to kind of feel uncomfortable saying something or doing something. It's going to be, we'll work together to figure it out. And then I just remember at the end of the night, he kind of just brought out cigars, And I don't smoke cigars, and we just kind of started smoking cigars, and then it was just like, okay, let's do this, you know.
Well, Sandler's like Sandler's such a special guy. Like I remember we walked to this restaurant, and at the restaurant is when he said to us, "I'm doing the movie," and then I accidentally ordered a very expensive steak. And then we were walking back to his office, and you know I think he saw that the way we work with any performer is you find their essence. And then you collaborate. The performance is a collaboration between the person's essence and the written character, and knowing that there's a lot of agency on behalf of the actor. And I think once he saw that and saw our familial style of creation, he felt very comfortable. So he busted out these cigars. He goes, "Let's do it." But then this person, you remember this person?
Yes, the guy.
Somewhat of a grifter, homeless dude, stopped him. And
just give me a second. I got something I want you to see. And he started literally putting together like a 60-page magazine.
A zine, yeah, on the street, and it was like collating it and everything. He's like, "Oh, I got this page and that," and it was a while. And Sandler waited. You know, he waited because this person meant a lot to this person, and he accepted the zine and he looked through it, and you know that's the type of person he was. Filming on location in general is paramount because we believe. Form will follow function, and form does follow function, and I think that's the best way to kind of create something. Usually the form that comes about from being forced to do something a certain way, it adds a aesthetic realism to I don't know, to the experience of watching it, but mostly to the experience of making it. I think for the character, for the actors, when you know that you are surrounded by reality, there's, you know, the stakes are much higher in the sense that you don't want to be called out, or you don't. There's the element of embarrassment.
And we don't close down the streets in New York because that also creates a kind of a vibration amongst the frame and amongst people. You just feel, it feels more alive while you're shooting it because people could just walk in, you know. We shot on a stage for this movie, but we made it so that we couldn't move certain things, so that it felt like it was a real location.
And Darius Kanji would go up to and kick the showcase. He was like, "Why can't we move this?" It's like, well, because if it, you know, we want
it informs the shots. It informs where the characters.
Well, we also brought a lot of 47th Street, the street, to our stage, which was out in Long Island. I spent about 8 years, maybe more, in the Diamond District, ingratiating myself into that world, doing work with them, and by the time it came time to shoot, I basically handed over my contact list to Jen and her basically her team, Eleanor and Michelle mostly, and they went to 47th Street and they were there all day. And they would find these incredible characters and bring them back to the office, and we would all audition basically everyone for a lot of smaller parts and see who could do it and who couldn't. So you had these characters roaming about constantly, bringing an energy and a vibe of their lifestyle to the set. So they were literally making the walls, bringing the walls alive. I'll give you an anecdote. So we had on set, Sandler and us, we all agreed that we were gonna have this person who Sandler shadowed on the movie on set out on the stage in Long Island, and he was kind of the vibe ambassador. He's a jeweler from 47th Street. He appears in the movie briefly, and he's an incredible character, and he would be paid to be on set, and basically Sandler would hang out with him all day, so he would stay in kind of in the vibe of the character.
He had a very specific energy, and he would always just be around, and then the more he was around, the more helpful it was. And it kind of was like, okay, this is something we need to have all the time, right? You know, it was.
He was somebody who, when we first met him through his tape and on 47th Street, Sandler was like, oh, this is the guy who I want to trail and shadow, that he felt like he could see himself in.
But like
and that was just became it. Sounds like we need Todd on set all the time.
Yeah, because if he wanted to kind of go off book a little bit, he would go to Todd and say, how would you phrase something like this about like looking at a piece of jewelry? He wanted to, because Sandler was very specific about the lingo in the movie. He wanted it to be very specific and exact and real. So that was important.
And the salesmanship of it all.
Yeah, exactly.
And one day we showed up, and this guy's name is Todd. Todd was in our showroom, our fake fictional showroom, doing a jewelry sale with a woman who lived nearby the stage, who lived in Syosset, and we were all had to start our day, and he was like, no, just give me 1 second. I need one more second. I'm sorry. Hey, this is the big director, Josh. He can get you into the movie if you want. I'm like, I'm not putting anyone in the movie. But the crew was kind of like, when are we going to get in there? And this man and his client were holding us up, but it added to the energy so that when we did get in there, it felt like we had the privilege of being in there. So that extends to our ethos of shooting on location in the streets of New York, etc.